What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So, not exactly the result that we wanted, but also, ironically, exactly the result we wanted. I mean, it's a loss, but also we're through to the next round, so there's good, there's bad, there's ugly. First, let's talk about Tuchel. Because I kind of figured after the result and the performance from the weekend, I kind of figured to expect something like this formation, with the front three basically the same as against Palace. And I feel like that's kind of a mistake. And while we did manage to make it through the game fine and there weren't a whole lot of issues, I feel like we did make it a lot tougher on ourselves than we really needed to. And you could tell by the way the game went that even though Porto didn't create a whole lot of chances, we didn't really force them to have to sit back. We let them come on to us. We let them play high. We let them basically constantly attack us. And when you're trying to hold on to a 2-0 lead, the last thing you want to do is let the other team come on to you because all they need is that one goal, and suddenly now you're defending a one-goal lead for the rest of the game. And thankfully, we managed to hold them off until the end of the game, but it still felt weird to set up in a bit more of a defensive setup in mind. And again, I get the fact that yes, that front three did well against Palace, but like I said in the Palace review, Palace didn't defend. So you're going up against a better team and a team who's actually going to put pressure on you like Palace did not do against us. And it clearly showed that's going to hurt us. Like we can't go with that front three setup because they're not quite aggressive enough. Havertz, well, he can be a false nine if we're trying to kind of get away from the press and we're trying to just knock it long. He's not going to be somebody that's going to pick up the ball. That's more of a Giroud position. So I feel like that I knew to expect the front three, but I still was disappointed to see that Tuchel went with the same front three again. And then as far as everything else, pretty basic backline setup. I figured we'd see James in this one instead of Hudson-Odoi. A little disappointed about that, but not totally unexpected. And then Jorginho and Conte in the middle. As much praise as Jorginho has been getting for some reason, yeah, I expected to see him in there. I don't know why. like, again, I don't think he's played that well since we've returned from the international break. So I don't know what he's doing to warrant more and more time. Like, he was awful against West Brom, and then he was not good against Porto in the first round, and then he was decent against Palace, but not one of our better players. And yet he's still getting more time than Kovacic. Can't explain it. But with all that being said, talk about individuals now. Mendy had a few things to do throughout the game, but again, the one thing that I think he still struggles with the most and was basically the only chance that Porto really had for most of the game until the end was that giveaway with his feet. And it's just something that he's got to keep working on. And it's a little disappointing to see that we've come most of the way through the season and he's still a little iffy with his feet. Like there's still moments when he looks unsure and he's not really passing the ball very well and he's kicking it out of bounds with no pressure on. So yeah, it's a little disappointing to see that he's not really grown with that. But with that being said, he still looks very calm. He looks very confident in the air, and that's something that Kepa hasn't shown, I don't think, ever. So still easily our number one. And today didn't do too poorly. I mean, there's nothing he could have done for the shot. The shot was fantastic, so I'm not going to blame him for that one. And then to our back three, Espilicueta thought played pretty well. Was challenged a few times in one-on-one situations because of the way that we set up. We allowed Porto to leave guys forward because they didn't really feel pressured to have anybody like having to be forced back. They didn't feel like they had to bring a ton of guys back, so they let their forward men sit all the way up on our defense. And it caused for our defenders to have to be under a lot of pressure. And luckily, they handled the pressure very well. I mean, I thought Espilicueta did well in the one-on-ones. Silva's always been very good at reading the game, and he did that again very well today. Didn't really ever look troubled with pace, didn't ever look troubled with the strength of their main striker. So I thought he handled it very well. And then Rudiger had a couple of his little out of control moments where I'm a little concerned about how he defends. It's just he has those flashes where he looks a little crazy in his challenges, or he looks like he's about to go over and just bowl the guy over. But then he does okay, and he defends well. He is very strong and very quick to close down men. So it's good to see that he's still at least showing that side of his game, even if there are times when I do get a little concerned. And then the wingbacks. This is where I felt like we were the weakest today. Not that Chilwell played poorly, but I felt like he didn't really provide us a whole lot on the wing either. And I think, again, a lot of that is down to we weren't really able to get the ball out of the press very often. Because Porto knew they had to press us high, they knew they had to put pressure on our back line, and then they didn't have to leave a ton of guys back, again, because Havertz is not going to be one that can win the ball in the air. So our wingbacks really suffered because they were forced to step back further. They were forced to defend more. And I feel like that kind of hindered Chilwell a little bit. He wasn't really able to get up as much and help out in the attack like he has been in the past few games when he's been brilliant. So I feel like that hurt him a little bit, but he still defended very well and he still gave us a lot of cover on that left side. So that was good to see. But James, I don't know what's going on with him right now, but he really seems like a shadow of the player he was. And it's sad to say because he seems like he's been getting better as the season went along, and then something changed. And it wasn't right away. Like when Tuchel came in, at first he was doing okay. Like he was still performing pretty well. I watched, I think I watched all the games for England. But I do remember seeing him play for England during the international break, and he looked like he was playing fine there. But the past couple games he's played, he's just been slow. He looks apathetic, like he doesn't really want to challenge, he doesn't want to be out there. And it's kind of concerning because he's such a young, talented player. To see him look so apathetic and look like he doesn't want to play, look like he just doesn't really care to put a challenge in, that's not what you want from your young players. You want your young players to be pushing themselves, to be motivated, to push harder and work harder. And he doesn't seem to have that right now. I really felt like he was our worst player today. There were so many times I felt like he got beat for pace. It felt like we needed an option on the wide, and he's just not there. Giveaways too often. It's just really disappointing to see from him. And I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's a mental thing, if it's a personal thing, or if he's just lacking the ability right now. Whatever the case, though, I really hope he can figure it out because we need him to be at his best. Because ultimately, we've seen Hudson-Odoi isn't always at his best. He has his great moments, but he also has moments where he fades. So we need somebody to take that position, and neither of them are really providing enough right now. So we'll see what happens, but in my opinion, this was not a good game from him, and he really hurt us on the right side. Then into the midfield. First, Conte. Definitely can tell he's still lacking a little bit of fitness, and it's to be expected coming back from injury. He's had those injuries where it's just sort of put him off his game a little bit. You can see clearly that he's not 100% because when he is, he's just running the midfield easily. Today he still had his moments where he looked good. He looked like the best defensive midfielder in the world, like he normally does. But then he has a lot of moments too where he gives the ball away too easily, or he doesn't really read the situation and he gets the ball picked off of him. And he's not typically the best on the ball, but he's normally pretty good at it. He's normally at least not losing the ball cheaply. And he did that a few times today, so I'm going to chalk it up to returning to fitness, but if it becomes a habit, of course, that's going to be concerning for us going forward. But yeah, it was more of an anomaly for him today, I feel like. The other anomaly is Jorginho looked like the player that the media has been praising for the past few weeks. He finally stepped up. He finally showed what everybody's been crazy about because I've not been seeing it. And then today, I'm like, okay, this is. If you had told me that this Jorginho is the one that the media has been crazy about, the one that the media has been praising nonstop, saying that he's one of Chelsea's best players, I would have believed it based on the performance today. But he doesn't do it normally. Normally, he's not this good. Normally, he's not this quick. He's not reading situations this well. His passing is normally not this quick. So I don't know what he did today, but whatever he did, he looked fantastic in our midfield. And if you've watched my reviews, you know I normally despise having Jorginho on the field, especially over the past few weeks. He's been terrible. But today, he was one of our better players. I think he was our second best player on the field today. So good to see, and if he can keep it up, fantastic. But the problem is I feel like, again, this is more of an anomaly game for him because he does have these games where suddenly he's fantastic and he's just bossing the midfield with his passing. But most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, he's losing possession too often or getting beat defensively. So if that's not the case, if he's finally stepped up his game, then fantastic. Love to see more of it. And then we get to the front three, and these were probably... It's kind of up and down. Mount, this was one of his worst games, and he was still very energetic. He was still lively and trying to make things happen, but not nearly as much and not nearly as effective as he has been. And again, I do feel like that comes down to we didn't really have somebody who was willing to, or somebody that was really able to win the ball. And when it's Werner up there, it feels like we're more willing to kind of work the ball down the field and we can find his feet. Havertz, I don't know. It's like we lose something in the middle when he's in there. With Giroud, it could be a height thing. You dump it long, and he's going to challenge the defenders, put pressure on them. They're not going to be able to make anything happen. But yeah, with going with a false nine, it just felt like we lacked something, and it felt like we kept giving up possession a little too cheaply because they'd put the pressure and then we dump it long, and nobody up there could win it. So it felt like Mount wasn't really able to do what he normally does whenever we are able to keep more possession. And I feel like that whenever we're not the team that's bossing the possession, he is hurt by it because typically he's the one that's trying to make things happen when we do have the possession. So a little disappointed for him. Havertz, after a great game against Palace, but again, Palace made it easy for him. Today, just kind of back to the same, where he's sort of there, he's sort of making things happen, but he's not really fully involved. He's not constantly putting pressure on. He's not constantly getting involved in the play and trying to make things happen. He's just sort of there, and then he tries to do something, and then it doesn't work, and he's walking, and he's turned off, and now he's just a useless player. He's not involved anymore. And it happens too often for him, and I really had hoped that the performance against Palace would maybe spur him on to keep pushing himself and keep working hard. But based on today's performance, it looks like he kind of just went right back into his same old routine, where it's just sort of trotting along, waiting for the game to come to him. And then when it doesn't, he looks like he's a useless player. And we know he's not. He's shown he's not a useless player. So I just hate the fact that he kind of just went right back to that same old, same old. Maybe Tuchel will get into him and kind of get him back to what we saw against Palace, but I don't know. It was a little concerning how quickly he reverted right back to the same old stuff. And then Pulisic, I felt like was the man of the match, and I think he was voted man of the match as well, so it was deserved. And it's just because he was the one in the front three that felt like he was trying to make stuff happen. Where Mount looks to kind of open up the space when we have possession, and Havertz waits for the game to come to him. Pulisic tried to make the game come to him. Like, he was really pushing hard. He was really challenging the defense, constantly putting in some sort of tackle. Not letting them just easily receive it, not letting them easily just get rid of the ball. And there were times when we needed somebody to bail us out, and he was the one that was doing it, whether he's drawing a foul in the midfield or whether he's just at least putting some sort of tackle in on the defender so they can't just knock it right back to their attack. He was just constantly doing something. And even though it wasn't always effective, the fact that he's at least putting forth that effort, especially as a player who's returning from injury and who's kind of been iffy since he's made that return, it was good to see that he was working his butt off today because he's showing he wants to keep this spot. He wants to continue to play more. Because there's been a lot of talk in the media, of course, because it's what the media does. They just love to talk. And there's been a lot of, he's going to leave in the summer because he's out of favor with Tuchel. He can't work his way into the team. And then he showed today that he has the ability to. He's still that same hardworking player. He's still got the creative ability. The amount of times he just turned and skinned defenders was fantastic. It was great to watch. So it's just the only disappointment for him was that he couldn't get the goal, and he had one really good chance. I think Chilwell put up a little cross that I felt like he should have just put his body on, and instead he tried to turn it in with his foot, and he mishit it. So that was probably the only disappointment for him today, but everything else I thought was fantastic work from him. So good to see. Hope to see more of it. And then as far as the two subs that came on, was a little disappointed to see that we only made two subs because, you're basically playing almost the exact same team minus three players from the weekend. And then we've got Man City in the FA Cup this weekend. It's kind of a big game. We should be winning. Honestly, chances of us winning the Champions League, not very high. Hate to say it, we can always dream that 2012 is going to return, but chances are not high when you look at how good, I had the PSG game on at the same time, and I was kind of glancing down, and just watching them play, it's a different level. They just have more talent. While we can probably at least hold our own for a little bit, it's not going to be a good game for us when we go face them, if we face them. We could still face Real Madrid in the semis, and there's not a good chance of us winning that over two legs. So our chances in the Champions League are pretty slim. But if we can beat Man City in the semis this weekend, that gives us a very good chance to go and win the FA Cup. and we really could use a trophy this year. So I feel like we should have had maybe a little bit of an eye on the weekend as well. Not just completely foregoing this game because obviously it wasn't done, it wasn't completely finished. But the fact that he only made two subs when you have five available for this one kind of made me feel like he wasn't really focused on the weekend. He was more focused on getting this one done. And while it's not bad, it also makes me feel like, well, are we just sort of rolling over and saying, well, it's Man City and they're just in great form, so we have no chance? I feel like that's kind of a bad mentality to have. I don't know if that's what he was thinking, but it's kind of, in my mind, how it felt when he only made two subs today. But anyways, the two subs that came on, Ziyech and Giroud, neither of them really came on and affected the game too much. Giroud, he did hold up the ball pretty well up front. He kind of brought our attack a little bit more down the field, where Havertz wasn't really providing much. But then Ziyech, still not enough from him. I still feel like there's more to see, and he's just not reaching it. And I don't know if there's some sort of mental block there or not, but it definitely feels like there's something keeping him from reaching those same heights. And I feel like, kind of similar to James, I want to see more. I feel like he's not showing enough, and I want to see more from him. And if he can't show it, well, then we've got a lot of other talented youth players coming through our ranks that we can easily give time to. So I don't know. It's just it is disappointing because what we saw earlier this season, he looked fantastic, and now he's just kind of average, and he's not really providing us much. So, but anyways, with all that being said, though, we're through to the semifinals. We'll see tomorrow whether we play Real Madrid or Liverpool. Um, I'd rather play Liverpool at this point. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be nice if they could pull off a shock miracle against Madrid. But yeah, chances are we're probably going to play Madrid, and it's probably the best year to be facing them, to be honest, because they're not at the top of their game either. They're just like Barcelona. They're all the Spanish teams, or the normal two top Spanish teams, are just having a rough year, and that works in our favor. So it would be nice to manage to shock them and then make it to the finals. And again, I just looking at how strong PSG are, they got to be the favorites this year. So chances are, whether we win or whether Madrid wins, whoever's going to win is going to be facing them in the final, and it's going to take something special to beat them this year. So maybe we can. We'll see. But that's about all for this game. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea game reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.